This episode is brought to you by Jay-Z and his inspirational quote, driving Benzes with no benefits. Nah, Ben, huh? For some immigrants.
Welcome to the Stephan Dyer Podcast, my people.
Hello, my people. ¿Cómo están, damas y caballeros? Welcome to the Stephan Dyer Podcast, where I welcome people with remarkable stories for amazingly vulnerable conversations. This episode was just a beautiful conversation with one of the kindest, smartest, most empathetic leaders that I know. Kristal Au-Yong is currently the head of customer experience at Thomson Reuters. As a senior leader, she has strategic experience in data analytics, customer experience, financial services, and emerging technologies. Prior to this role, she was at Scotiabank, where I actually worked with her for years. Back in the day, where she was responsible for integrating advanced analytics and innovative technologies into retail and wholesale banking. In summary, she's a very, very smart person. But what I like about her the most is just her emotional intelligence, like incredible insights. She's a graduate from the University of Waterloo. She's also super passionate about building diverse teams, championing women in STEM. What is STEM? It stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And she's also passionate about mentoring upcoming leaders. Listen, while I anticipated this conversation to be great, I did not expect it to go as fantastic as it did. So much learning, vulnerability, and just $1,000,000 insights. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy this episode like I know you will. In 3, 2, 1, go. Welcome to the Stephan Dyer Podcast. I am very excited. I have here Kristal Au-Yong, an old friend that I haven't talked to for years, the unbreakable, the unmistakable, the highly capable Kristal Au-Yong. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Stephan. So happy to be here with you.
I know I've been wanting to message you for months. We've had each other on LinkedIn for many years because we worked together like 7, 8, or 9 years ago. And I've seen how you've grown in your career. Not surprised. I'm literally proud of you, excited for you, and the reason why I invited you, it's a bit of a tradition on the podcast. I tell my guests why I invited them, and I told you this in my LinkedIn message. So I think you're one of the kindest and most professional people I've ever worked with, and I'm so happy for your success over the years. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you went from director to SVP in 3 years. Now you're the head of a big department at Reuters, and you've continued to grow your career. And as Tony Robbins says, success leaves clues. I think we can all learn from you. And I think the women, especially that listen to my podcast, would also be really excited to hear how you've navigated and succeeded in a traditionally male-dominated environment like STEM or banking. Now you're at Reuters. So thank you for accepting my invitation.
No, thank you for being here. And when you sent me the LinkedIn message and you said I was the nicest or kindest or whatever you said, so I can't say no now because then he's not going to think I'm nice or kind anymore. So you kind of put me in a corner, but no, I'm kidding. All jokes aside, I'm really happy to do this. The topic that you've asked me here for is something that I take to heart, and it's something I'm really passionate about. I want to be able to share my stories, my successes with others, because I know that it's very doable, right? There's nothing special about me. I've been able to demonstrate, and I think many people can achieve what they've set their mind to.
That's huge. I'm so happy you said that, and because you're kind, I'm very excited about this episode because, as I've told other of my guests, I'm really a fan of people that are able to accomplish great things or are high performers without losing their essence, their authenticity, and still being kind. I don't know if there's like a old school way of thinking or people. When I think of bosses, like the old school, like in movies, a lot of these people are like a-holes. They're like yelling at people and coercive and everything. And I'm like, wow, like Kristal is still as incredible, kind, smart, and she's leading the way for other people who may not consider themselves like extremely loud or bullying other people. So I'm very excited. Thank you again. So I'm going to start with my first question. I have a bunch of questions lined up. The conversation may take us to different parts. So I think a little bit, I really want to give some advice to people starting their career. And what advice would you give yourself if you started your career all over again? Or what would you do all over again? Because you've been very successful at what you do.
Honest answer, I probably would tell myself. So this is not to the general young future leaders, but to myself, I would have said, hey, guess what? There's something else besides banking out there, and you don't have to be a banker. I would have probably picked a different career, to be totally honest. But I think what I would tell to people is really explore what you like to do, right? Because this is a really long time within your life where it's going to be, you're spending a lot more time at it, especially when you're early in your career, you're grinding through. And, when you're successful later on too, like the hours that you put in and the amount of time you spend, you want to love what you do, right? And I think, Stephan, when I look at you, and I've watched you throughout your growth in the last 7 years too, and yeah, maybe I stalked you on LinkedIn or I watched you on LinkedIn, but I love when people take pivots in their careers and really find something that they love to do and something that they're very energized about. I think for me, it's, I would say definitely find what you love to do, but take the risks, right? And everything is not that scary. And it doesn't have to be that controlled. When you start thinking about, I think in my early days of my career, everybody kind of always asked me, well, what do you want to do in your next 5 years? What do you want to do in your next 10 years? I'm like, you should never ask somebody who's like 22 what they want to do or 25 or, and like, I could never be that calculated about what my career path was. And, sometimes I tell that to people and they say, well, you must have had it mapped out. Those that know me know I'm very I've got to have a project plan, like, very execution focused. But when it came to my career, I was always looking just for the next new challenge. Put me in a zone where I'm uncomfortable and I'm forced to learn something new. That's kind of the way I always looked at my career. And, part of it, you may say, is that I also get bored easily. So there is only, if you look at my profile, I stayed in jobs for, I don't think more than two years or so. And I always felt like once I got to a point where I wasn't really learning or I felt comfortable, it was on for the next challenge, right? So I really encourage people to think about what makes them uncomfortable and not be scared about it, because you'll have the most fun when you're uncomfortable because you're always trying something new. And that just really gets your energy going up and you don't become complacent. So that's something I've tried to keep through my whole career, which is just try to make myself uncomfortable.
I love that. As someone who shies away from conflict, or I don't like to get into discussions with people or have to have these like face-to-face conversations where I tell people, especially when I was at the bank, that I don't want to be in this. It's not that I don't want to be, but I want new challenges. I my first position where I actually was on the same larger team with you, yeah. I was there for 4 years. Granted, I was there for like a year as an intern and then 3 years as a manager. How do you tell someone, or how do you come to the conversation and tell people, this is it for me, I want a new challenge, without them being like, no, you have to be here for like 3 years, or why do you think I would sign off on this? How do you socialize it so that they're on board with you? Do you tell them first, or is it also okay to just tell them like, hey, this is it for me?
So one of the things I always tell people is that you have to speak up for your own career, right? You have to say what you want because nobody's going to guess for you. And people like to, especially for young people like to mold people will like to mold young people's careers and be like, this is how I did it. This is how you should do it, right? And that 3-year stint that you mentioned, that's kind of very old school thinking, right? Because that is typically how people moved in very traditional industries. You do 3 years and you move on and you rotate through. I think the way you message that is, you don't insult the person because that's what they do and that's what they're passionate about. So you don't want to tell them like, hey, your job is super boring and I don't want to be you in like 10 years. Or 20 years or whatever it is, but it's really being able to say like, this is what drives me. This is the challenge. And this is where I get my energy from, right? Like I think a lot about energy in the sense of like, how do I allocate it? How do I want to spend it? Because you only get so much in a day. And the way I think about it is when you explain it, try to be really authentic about it in terms of what you want to do. People that will talk about it in a very calculated way of like, well, I'm done 2 years because I want to be the next level in 2 years, or I want to manage people, or I want to do whatever. Then it sounds like you're not looking for the right challenge, but you're looking to really check off boxes in a very meticulous plan, which works for some people. But, I think when you're trying to get that message across, being able to explain to that person you're speaking to, like what actually drives you and motivates you. I think at the end of the day too, it's you want to work for people and you want to work with people that are going to want you to want to be there, right? If it's somebody that's saying that like, hey, I want you here because you have to do 3 years, that's probably not somebody that you're going to look up to as a role model either, right? So it's even more indication that it's not the right place for you. And I think it's okay for that. It always seems a bit scary to have these uncomfortable conversations. But like I said, at the end of the day, you have to speak for what you want. And you can't let people guess for you or tell you what to do.
Now that you're the head of customer experience at Reuters and you hire a lot of people, or you've hired in your previous roles, what is one thing that you look for in the people that you interview where you're like, I want to work with this person? Do you not necessarily look a lot towards the resume? Do you look for resilience? Do you look for people who have worked like bad, like shitty jobs at the beginning of their career? To me, it's important that they have, that they have traveled, they have seen the world, they're empathetic, that they have, waited tables or can talk to people, or they can influence. But I really want to work with someone who's high integrity and high energy, high accountability, but you don't necessarily always get that perfect person. Is there anything you particularly look for in people?
Yeah, there's one thing, and when I look for it in the person, I look for it in the context of the team as well, because most of the times you're building teams, right? And so you want to find people that will fit together, complement each other, are different from each other as well. And one of the rules that I've always had when we're building teams is that I want everybody to bring a very different set of experience. So, travel the world or grow up in one place and live only in one place your whole life. Doesn't matter to me. But what you bring to the table is a different perspective from the other person. But what you must share with myself and the team members is we have the same values, right? So for example, like right now I lead customer experience. You must care about the customer. You must want to do the best thing for the customer. Like that's the value you hold when thinking about the mandate that we're delivering in, the way that you approach your work. Like you mentioned things like resilience. What I really look for is people that I know are just going to roll up their sleeves and get work done, right? And so there's going to be people that, we're going to have some big challenges ahead of us, or we're going to have some good, or really some good wins or outcomes. And basically I want people who can just really drive through that and be able to deliver together as a team. And you got to have a little bit of a fun attitude too, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to work with people that we like as well. And so you don't want to be surrounded by people that just do not want to come to work either, right? Or want to do the least minimum.
Yeah. The next question is a little bit similar, but I think from my time at the bank and hearing some people, the jump from senior manager to director was harder than from manager to senior manager per se. And the jump from director to VP or to SVP, to an executive position, was even harder. What would you say is like the most important thing, apart from being like really good at your job? Would it be being able to manage people or to speak with confidence or influencing people, networking, like in the old school way of thinking, like staying late, having FaceTime with if you could point at one thing that people would really need, like 10, 15 years after they start their career, to be able to really jump to an executive level, what do you think that would be?
I think it's all based on relationships and how you work. And I don't mean relationships in terms of FaceTime or coffee or networking, right? It's, are you a person that somebody wants to work with? Whether they're reporting to you, they're your peer, or you're going to be reporting to them. You mentioned kindness or niceness in the beginning, and I'm not fake. I am really nice or kind, right? But it's part of my style, right? Because some people may accuse me of being like, oh, you're too nice. You're not that typical executive that's been in banking. And my style it's always been really purposeful to be like approachable by anybody, because it makes it easy to talk about the tough things at work, right? Because like you mentioned, conflict, a lot of our work, there's a lot of conflict in it, because sometimes we're just solving really, really hard problems. If I'm a bully, or if I'm not approachable, or if I'm just so ultra focused that I don't care about, who I'm talking to, I'm not going to be able to get the work done, right? And so for me, as I've moved across, do the work well, lead the teams, think about, but really think about the relationship that you're building with people. So for the people that are going to work for you, do you care about their careers? Like, what kind of relationship are you building there where they feel like you have their back all the time, right? And so that's the type of relationship. And then with your peers, it's like, are you going to throw them under the bus? No, you're not, because you're actually going to lock arms and do something together. It's like in school, you work on a project together and everybody has that same goal. And then when you're thinking about who you're going to work for, do you have this relationship of trust where, you feel like you feel like you like them and you want them to be successful as well. So you're going to be really loyal and work really hard to get them what they need, because you care about each other, right? So a lot of it just comes down to me. It's like building that network of people that you actually care about. So. Yes,
I would love to work for you. If I was still working in the corporate world, I would love. And you know what? Like, seriously, this is what I liked about you from back in the day. It always seemed to me like you were very human. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you used to do yoga? You still do yoga or Pilates or something?
I still do it. Yeah, I still do it.
I remember, like, I went to the gym and, like, I think sometimes I would see you bringing your yoga mat and I'm like, amazing. Like Kristal is a person, nothing wrong with the people who are like, oh, I get there at 7 a.m. and I leave at 9 p.m. and I'm always in a suit and tie and blah, blah, blah. And all I do is banking. And at parties, I'm a banker and blah, blah, blah. And it seems to me like a lot of these people, nothing wrong, but they can't detach from their identity is their profession in many ways. So when I saw you, I'm like, oh, amazing. Like, you came, like, whenever we would go for a beer with Henry or Fedsa or the guys or whoever from the team, Like you would be there and I could always have an incredible conversation with you. And then it shouldn't be like this, but I'm so happy and astounded that so high up there is someone so kind who hasn't lost her essence and her authenticity. So I really want to congratulate you for that. Has there ever been a time where another executive or someone tries to like bully you in a conversation and you still have to keep your cool? I think that would be the most disarming thing. Where like,
yeah, I mean that happens, and that has happened. But at the end, again, I go back to my rule about energy, right? And so I only have so much energy in a day. Are you going to take up my energy? So, like for people that are, I haven't been in too many situations. I've been really like, but I've also been very purposeful to build good relationships where people don't want to, I feel like people have not been negative towards me in many occasions. So I think though, in those occasions, it's unnerving. I'm not somebody that likes conflict either, but I am somebody that will stand up for myself. Right. So you will get the nice me, but you will get the very direct me as well, where, if I feel that we're not doing something that is right. And, especially for our teams, or I will, I'll stand up and I'll say what I want. And like, I think in addition to building relationships I've been very thoughtful about what I believe in, and I say what I believe in, right? So I won't shy away from difficult conversations. Like, it's not like I go out seeking conflict. I don't like conflict, but I will be very direct and I will speak up if I think that something is not right. And I think that, it's who we are. It's also like how I was brought up. I think a lot of it, when you talk about staying human, like my family really keeps me grounded, right? And so they don't let me think I'm, a banker or whatever. They laugh at me, and and so I feel like I'm normal. Like, I'm just the same person that, I'm a family that came over from Malaysia. We were immigrants. I watched my parents struggle through, all of the things that immigrants struggle through, and they're getting settled with. I always imagined myself like I think my dad was 40 and my mom was 35 when we came over, and they had 3 kids under, I think 10, under the age of 10, right? 10, 8, and 6. And so no job and everything that they had. And so it was very humbling to be a part of that family unit. And I don't think that no matter whatever successes we had, along the way, you just kind of stick to your roots. So I hold that very closely to me. And I think that part of the culture for me adds to a lot of who I am today in the workplace as well.
Incredible. Now that you mentioned Malaysia, we were talking right before the interview that I went to Malaysia to do a TEDx talk. I had never been to Asia. I never thought I would go to Asia. I was in Kuala Lumpur for a week, and then half a day, or like a day in Singapore, where we just took a short plane, and it was incredible to see that place. Beautiful, and Singapore was beautiful as well. I want to elaborate really quickly on the conflict, because I love this conversation. Is there any particular course or any particular book that has really helped you with your communication assertively or directly, or how to influence people, strategically influence people, or to have these tough conversations? Because to me, that was the hardest. Granted, I only worked for 7 years until I was 29 in the banking world. But is there anything particular that helped you, or was it just experience?
It was experience. I mean, I always tried to read a lot of the books of, how to influence people and that sort of thing. It never stuck with me. But a couple books that really stuck with me was one of them is Lean In, right? Like I read that and I love
My wife
that
has that on her desk right now.
Yeah, it's a great, great book. I encourage everyone to read it, men or women. Like I think that it's such a great message in there around just being brave and just participating, right? And sometimes for myself too, I'm fairly introverted. And
Currently, what? Sorry?
I said I'm fairly introverted.
Oh,
Yeah. So, it's for me, it's especially early in my career, speaking up in meetings or participating, it was hard for me because I was shy and I just thought, who really cares about my opinion? Like, what do I know? And so, reading that book, it was take the seat at the table and just, you're there, you're in a meeting, people care about what you have to say, right? So you can't let your own insecurities think that that's what people believe about you. And so Lean In was really good. From a productivity standpoint, just on like in terms of influencing or just being a better professional, there's one book that I'm actually listening to right now. And I can't get it out of my head. First of all, it's taking me like forever to listen to it because I think it's like 10 hours long. It's called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
Oh, David Goggins.
Isn't it amazing? I take it's what I'm reading now currently. Lean In I read or when it first came out. This is a book I'm listening to right now. It is incredible, right? This guy is out of this world. And but every time, whether I'm working out or I'm, really focused on work and I'm like, oh, I don't really want to do this right now. I think about this guy running on broken legs and I'm just like, just finish this email, Kristal, and then you can go and do whatever you want or just lift this weight or finish this prep, whatever it is. It's so motivational. I think it's awesome. It's crazy, but it's awesome.
I love it. I'm a productivity freak myself. I'm obsessed. Now I've actually shifted my definition of productivity. It used to be like the traditional one where accomplish more in less time, but now I think to me it's more about freeing up time for what matters.
Yeah.
Automating things or doing things more efficiently so that I can be with my son, I can be with my wife, I can travel, I can watch TV, I can watch Barcelona games, do whatever I want. And that to me is productivity. Do you think fitness or meditation in your life in general actually boosts your productivity? Because a lot of people may think like, oh no, I won't dedicate an hour of yoga and an hour and 20 minutes of meditation because that's an hour and 20 minutes that I'm not writing an email or doing more work. How would you approach it?
No, I mean, I love fitness and I've only, to be honest, I've done yoga forever, right? But I was never good at meditation. In the end of the yoga class where you lay down for however long, for me, it was just like, my feet are cold, I'm tired, let me get out of here, I want to leave. And so I could never focus. During the pandemic though, I started to, I live on my own now. And so it was hard because I was like by myself all the time. And I just thought I'm too unfocused. And so I've tried meditation for many times before and it never worked. And something just, I know why it clicked. It's because I run a lot as well. And so on the Nike Run app, there's a coaching piece where the guy from Headspace joins the coach.
Yes.
And so I started at least listening to it and it was really great. So I decided to get into it because I felt like I was almost meditating on my run. And so I started to meditate and what I found was just a lot clearer. Right. And so I now what I do in the morning is just 10 minutes. And before I start my day and I feel like I attack those emails I always have like a couple key focus things that I need to get out of the way before I start, with everyone, but it just allows me to have higher quality in what that email or that output or whatever it is right now. So I think fitness and meditation is a big part of it.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that a lot of people don't get that. One of the key ingredients of productivity is mental clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have too many things on your mind, you won't be able to be really efficient or effective at what you're doing. And that meditation and that sports give you that mental clarity.
Yeah, totally. I think, I love working out now. And so I started working out with a trainer years ago, or a few years ago. And then I took on another trainer recently, or she took me on really. And but it's really fun. Like I think for me, she helped me be a lot more productive in my day-to-day and just be a lot more focused and just more present. I think
Yes.
Frida, sorry, my trainer Frida, she's amazing. I think that she's somebody that came on and just really helped me not just achieve my goals, but just be really clear and, give me a routine as well so that I could go and focus on work in a way where I didn't feel like, oh, I'm feeling guilty for being at work and not working out or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah.
You have a passion for championing women in STEM. And for the people who don't know STEM and had to Google it like me 30 minutes ago, it means science, technology, engineering, and math. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that women make up like 10% of professionals in STEM or more or less, but not that much.
It's not that much. Yeah.
I
don't have the exact stat. Yeah.
How can we increase that number? And how can we shift the conversation so that women, if this is something that they're actually passionate about, that they actually go to school for this, or that we can also encourage them in our own conversations? How do you think we can bridge that gap and increase that number in coming years?
Yeah, I think it starts from an early age, right? It starts on getting the interest of girls into these types of programs. And, I think that this generation, we're getting a lot better at that, right? So, I went to University of Waterloo. I started off in the math program, and there weren't many women in the math program at that time. And I think that, it was funny too, because when I think about growing up, and even when, like I was a bit of a nerd, right? So I'd get like the math award, but my competition was always another girl. It was never a boy, right? And so it always fascinated me because I always felt like it never occurred to me like, hey, there's this big gender difference between girls and boys in that because we were a little bit of a newer generation as well, right? Where we had those opportunities, but it really started to trickle. Like I've really noticed it in university where there were not a lot of females in these math programs and computer science. So I think to encourage it, it's really it's building the awareness when they're kids, like programs like Girls Learning Code. It's an amazing program. I think a couple of years ago, I was able to host a session during the day where parents brought their kids in for a girls coding day. And it was amazing. Like, one thing would be like, oh, it's so cute to look at these little girls doing code, but it's like, no, they're just doing code and they're in a space where there's no one telling them that they can't. And I think it's just saying like, yeah, go do it. And I think that getting the awareness, giving the fair opportunities that there are. And I think it's just when we're thinking about hiring as well, we have to start thinking about, are we hiring these women into these opportunities? And then what are we doing to develop them as we go along as well? Are we giving them the opportunities? So a lot of it is like in the beginning of people's careers, like finding yourself the right mentor or the right sponsor that will help coach you along, and let you find what you like to do, and encourage you along the way. And then I encourage a lot of leaders, whether you're man or woman, is to really be able to find these amazing talents, which typically may not be as outspoken. If you think about STEM as well, there's not a lot of extroverted people in that topic, right? And so chances are you're not going to get a lot of people that speak out. So give them the opportunity to speak out, and it's almost like leading and in a little bit of a different way.
Being an immigrant myself, I kind of see it sometimes back home, and even with immigrant parents here or newcomers, where especially for women, like that is not a popular choice when immigrant parents are talking about like what their daughter is going to do. I think it's important to change the conversation. At least Latinos, they're not talking to their daughter about go do math or go do IT or engineering or science, but not as much at least. But I think it's incumbent upon us to also change that conversation. And that organization that you talked about, I think a lot of people would be excited to hear that exists. Yeah. So thank you for mentioning that. Would you agree that sometimes immigrant parents kind of do that? Like in Latin America, I think it happens.
I think it's cultural, right? I think it depends on what that culture is. It also depends, I think, in the dynamic of your home. Like I grew up in a house with 3 girls. And my dad, when we were teenagers, he moved back to Singapore because he worked for Singapore Airlines. So he was based there. So we would see him, or we would go back and forth to see him. But in our house, there was no, you're a girl, so you're going to do this, or you're a boy, so you're going to do, like, everybody did everything. And so it was never imposed upon me or my sisters that we couldn't do, or that we had to move towards a certain type of subject, right? Like if I think my sister she's a bigger nerd than me. She went to computer camp, and and so my parents really encouraged that. And I think, again, culturally, like maybe it's different from where it is. And I don't know, like you're a male. Like, did your parents encourage you to do math?
They encouraged me, and I think my family were like, because I initially said I love history, I love political science, I love writing.
Yeah.
And now that I think back, it was like my love for art, for creating. And I remember vividly having a conversation with my dad where he was like, my dad is a businessman, and he was like, well, you also love economics, so why don't you do that? And you could do history and reading and political science as a hobby. And I agreed at that time, and I don't regret it. I ended up doing commerce and so economics and finance, like a Bachelor of Commerce. But in many ways, I think when I see my Latina friends, like women friends here, I don't think a lot of them would be doing this, despite loving it, some of them. And I think it's like, oh, what would they say back home? Like, what would my mom say if I did this, blah, blah, blah. It's not very popular. And that's why I'm really excited to have you here, because it's like, she did it and she's doing incredible. It's possible. And it's also really powerful in my books to have someone to look up to, and someone that did it, who's kind, who's authentic. And on that topic, because I'm seeing it with my wife now, she just went through a 1-year maternity leave. She just came back. She was promoted. She works at Spin Master at a toy company. and she's in demand planning, and she loves it. But with my son Liam now being a year and 4 months, sometimes, and I hear it from her friends too, it in their conversations, it's like, do I want to focus on my career or do I want to be a mom? And I think it's unfair that you would have to pick to do, or do I want to be yeah, it seems like they're picking between family and career. I don't even know if I have a question about that, but do you feel like you had to really focus on your career, or what, did it just evolve?
No, I think so I mean in my case, like I don't have kids, right? And so but I spent many, many years trying to have kids. And so I always found that I was calculating in my head as to, okay, if I get pregnant now, like what does this mean? And there were periods of time too where we did a lot of fertility treatment. And so I was always so worried about showing up to work late because for fertility treatment, you're going in every morning to get blood work and all that kind of good stuff. But I was always so worried and nervous that, oh my goodness, I'm going to miss out on an hour. And like in hindsight now, if I think about it, I'm just like, what was I worried and stressed about for showing up at 9:30 versus 8:30, right? And like, what would people say? And I think, if I could have told myself back then, this is your life. Like you make your choice of what you want to do. Like, I think that, you can, it's hard to do both. I watch a lot of friends try and juggle having young children and managing their careers at the same time. It's hard for me to say like, oh yeah, you can do both, because it is really hard. I've seen some women do it, but it takes really supportive partners as well. And you have to build this whole unit to be able to, because moving upwards to these higher positions, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of hours, and it steals away your time from your family. And that's just the honest truth. Right. And so, yes. That, being able to balance that, you're going to have to place some boundaries on what that looks like. And, if I had told myself back then, like, don't worry, like, stop freaking out about everything, I probably would have been a lot more calm. But, I think, and I held back on actually, like, I didn't even have a baby then. And I was like, oh no, I can't go talk about, moving into a director position because I don't know what's going to happen. And so I think when, I sort of realized though, like when I was a director and had the opportunity to become a VP, and I was just like, and at that point we were thinking about adopting, and I was like, oh, I don't know. I can't do this because if I'm going to adopt, and somebody said to me, it's just like, just live in the present, like make today's decision and you'll figure it out. And every day you will make that decision of, that choice. And so part of it too is like, you live in the present, you make the choices, and then you pivot as you go along. So, I mean, I pivoted in the sense that I never had kids. And then I went into the position of, okay, fine, I'll spend a lot more time on my career. And, it sucked up a lot of my time. Like I work a lot of hours, right? So I think it's just really understanding what comes along with the career growth piece, and then having to make the decisions around, what's really important to you at that time, right? And so careers Yes. are long as well. Like your career too is, I don't know what, like 40 years or so. Your kids stay at home with you for 18 years, right? So, I don't know.
It's true.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins has a phrase that I think about every day, and it goes, I used to achieve to be happy. Now I happily achieve. Going back to what you said, and looking back at my banking career, at least I quit my banking job 4 years ago. But looking back, I'm like, I stressed more than I should have, I guess, in hindsight, for specific projects or specific credits that I was writing or specific things. And now that I look back, I'm like, dude, I should have just relaxed. It would have been a much more enjoyable ride. And in many ways, I was really looking forward to specific moments, to like if I get a promotion or if I get high. And I'm glad that I really enjoyed certain parts of my career. Like I still went to the gym, I still went to play soccer until I became a senior manager, and it got really stressful at some points. And I'm like, how do you how do you relax and disconnect from work? And how do you make sure that you don't just enjoy the big milestones, like the promotions, blah, blah, blah? How do you make it every day more enjoyable to make sure that you don't go crazy? Like, is it like running and meditation? Do you also do other things that helps you keep sane? For me, it's comedy, meditation, gratitude. What other things do you do that make the ride a lot more enjoyable?
Hard question.
And it could be that you love doing what you do, like you love your work, so maybe you do more of that. Which
yeah, I mean, like, yes, I mean, I really like. I love what I do, and like if I look back and I think, okay, I spent a lot of hours on my career, it's worth it. I really like what I'm doing, but. Yeah, I think one thing again with the pandemic, right? Being by yourself a lot, or being stuck in the same environment. I started to just revisit a lot of different hobbies, right? And so reading for me it allows me to take myself out of my current world. Like
yes.
I just basically enter another world, right? And so as much as I love reading like business books where I can think about it, and it's tiring on your brain. So I just sometimes it's just picking up a really easy fiction read and kind of getting lost in that, right? And so there's just and I feel good about it too, because I feel like I'm not just sitting in front of a TV or anything like that.
Yes.
I still feel like, hey, I'm allowing myself to be creative, but I'm relaxing at the same time.
I see you in many ways as a high performer, because you don't just get to where you are by chance. Do you have any rituals or habits or productivity hacks that you can share? What does your morning look like? Are you an early bird, or what does that look like?
Yeah, no, my morning is I wake up pretty early. I wake up around 5 or 5:30. Some days I'll go I used to work out in the morning all the time, but I found that as I got older, like my bones hurt in the morning. So I switched that, and I do my workouts in the evening. But if it's, if I'm feeling like good energy, I'll do some yoga or go for a quick run in the morning. But typically I wake up early, but I go down, grab my coffee, just kind of clear the dishwasher, like have some really like very
quiet time,
brain dead kind of quiet time of just really being quiet. I do my meditation for 10 minutes or so, and then I'll come up and I'll start working, right? And so I like getting in to the office early before everybody gets there. It's like it's my time, right? And so it's a little bit different now because I'm working with time zones that are ahead of me. So sometimes I'm with them a little bit earlier as well. But for the most part, I just take that time to be really quiet, focus on planning out what my day is going to look like, what my week is going to look like. And just, one thing I'm not good at is I'm not a good multitasker, right? And for years, I used to think, oh, I'm so good at doing 10 things at once. Look at me, I'm amazing. And then I was like, I'm not getting anything done.
Yes.
So, and so now what I do is I spend quite a bit of time planning out how to be focused during the day. I know that sounds really weird, but
I do that too.
Yeah, I think it helps, right? And so, and then I don't feel like I'm just spinning my wheels at the end of the day. I'm like, okay, close up my laptop. I'm good. I did what I needed to do today, and tomorrow's another day.
I do this one thing. A lot of people do this. It's called a Pomodoro. Have you heard of it?
No, I
And
haven't.
it's basically one Pomodoro is a 25-minute unit of time where you don't do anything except what you're doing. So you'd be surprised. Well, I know you know, but you'd be surprised what you can accomplish in 25 minutes of uninterrupted time. So I have this little agenda called the productivity planner, and it helps you really identify your priorities for the week and your 3 to 5 priorities for the day. And then you work in Pomodoro units of uninterrupted time. And I found that 25 minutes of uninterrupted time is equal to like an hour and a half or 2 hours of interrupted time.
Yeah.
And you don't even know how much you get interrupted until you actually focus for 25 minutes. And through this podcast episode of Tony Robbins with Daniel Pink that I'm going to share with you after this, it's called Timing is Everything. They share that the morning is your most productive time to really tackle the most important hard analytical tasks. So having meetings or getting all your team to have meetings in the morning is not as good as having the meetings in the afternoon or after lunch, because then like have the meetings in the afternoon is better. I mean, because after lunch you're like winding down, you're just like not as crisp. So you may have a meeting where you don't need 100% of your exact concentration. You might as well spend that in the morning in your harder tasks. So it really makes a difference in the long term. At the end of the day, it's a difference between feeling productive and feeling busy. Everyone's busy. Nobody feels productive. So it's really good to focus on that.
Yeah, I love that because I just think about times where I've spent late at night, like trying to write something out, and it's taking me, and it's like a couple hours already. I'm just like, I can't look at this anymore. And then I wake up, do my thing, and then I finish it off, and it only took 20 minutes. I'm like, how did that happen? Right.
It's the mental clarity.
I'm actually reading a book now called 5 a.m. Club. I'm trying to really tighten up my morning routine.
Yeah.
But it's a good read so far. It's a productivity book, obviously, but it's told in a way of a story as well. So
I've heard it. I haven't read it. I've read many but I haven't read that one yet. The one that really shifted my mornings was the Miracle Morning.
Okay.
And it's basically, the premise is having a productive life before 8 a.m.
Yeah.
This section of the podcast here, we're gonna have a rapid fire question part of the podcast.
Okay.
So if you can't think about it, you say next. Okay.
Okay.
But these are not that hard. So I think you don't have to answer them in like a fast voice. But if I speak faster, it makes it more exciting for our listeners. Okay. So I have 8 questions here. Very rapid fire, but you can take like 30 seconds if you want. So what have you done in the past 3 months that makes you feel proud of yourself?
I moved into a new home that I renovated, not myself, but got contractors to do it. I love anything with design, so I'm very proud that I moved into this new home.
It looks really cool. It looks really like a really cool home. Okay, what is one of the most worthwhile investments you've ever made? It doesn't need to be monetary. It could be any other worthwhile investment.
My pets. I love my pets. They keep me sane.
What pets do you have?
I have 2 little kittens. One is named Sammy and one is named Cinnamon, and they're just so cute. So
Amazing. I love that. What is a goal that you set and felt surprised that you achieved?
when I decided I wanted to leave Scotiabank, and I found a new role that I'm in today that I really enjoy. And for me, the goal was to put myself outside of my comfort zone after so many years of being at a single organization and feel like, can I make it, can I make a difference, or can I do this at another organization where I have to rebuild all those networks and relationships? And, I've been at the new company now for 4 months. I should have said within the last 3 months. I'm really proud that I started at a new company. But I feel like I can be very proud of myself because I feel like it wasn't just success at a place that I'd been for at a really long time. I feel like I can do positive things here as well.
That's amazing. On the other side, what opportunity has come your way that you are glad you turned down, professional one or personal or anything?
That I'm glad I turned down.
Yeah, it could be moving. It could be professional. It could be a trip. It could be anything in university. It could be anything in your personal life.
Can I come back to that next? I'll come back to that one.
Okay. If you could interview any person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I'm thinking. I'm going to go with Barack Obama.
Nice.
I mean, he's awesome. I'm reading his book right now, and he's such an incredible person.
Which one? The new one or?
The new one. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, next one. What has been one of your happiest moments?
Why is this so hard?
I don't know. Maybe because you have so many. I don't know.
One of my happiest moments has, I think the day I left for university was one of my happiest moments. I remember sitting on the porch, the day I had to pack everything up, and I was just so happy and excited and proud that, I was going on this big adventure by myself.
And you moved from Toronto to Waterloo.
Yeah, I mean, it was an hour and a half away, but still.
That's huge. That's incredible. One of my happiest moments, without a doubt, was in high school as well, winning a rugby tournament. Okay, if you could start a charitable organization, what would be the cause?
I would start a foundation for endometriosis awareness.
For what? Sorry?
Endometriosis. It's a reproductive issue that women have. It's something that I have. And I just feel like 1 out of 10 women have it. Nobody's really ever heard of it. And I would just love for young girls to be more aware of their bodies because of the long-term impacts that it has on you.
And just for context, what is it? What is it in specifically? Or how can it be prevented, or can it not be prevented?
It's a reproductive issue, or it's an issue with your reproductive organs in females. And there isn't enough research to tell you exactly why you have it. It could be genetics, it could be your environment, it could be your diet. There's really no clear views on it. And I just don't, I would love for girls who are young, as they're having challenges with their bodies, to be able to go to a doctor and be able to be treated for it properly, because many of us who are older did not get it treated until it was way too late. So
Amazing.
Yeah.
What's it called specifically? I want to write
It's called endometriosis.
Endometriosis. Okay,
Yeah.
really good. What book have you recommended most to others?
Okay. You're getting the Kristal answer here. It's Harry Potter. Like, if you haven't read Harry Potter, you got to read Harry Potter. It's so good. All of them. Just read all of them.
My wife has all. Actually, they're up here. Those are the Harry Potters from my wife.
Amazing.
She read them in Spanish, and you may judge me for this, but I always fall asleep when she plays. She always wants to like watch them again with me, and I always fall asleep at the middle of the movie. But I love it, and I respect it, and it's incredible. Harry Potter is unbelievable. As you have gotten
I know you thought I was going to come up with something like super serious, but no, it's Harry Potter all the way.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, you already said David Goggins and you already said Lean In, which are incredible as well. So we're giving our listeners some really good tips here. This is my favorite one. As you have gotten older, what has become increasingly important to you?
My own personal time and just saying no to things that I don't really want to do.
And how do you, I'm really interested in that again, because I don't like saying no to people, but when people ask you like, hey, can we do like, because I guess, well, not a lot anymore, but like 1 million coffees where people would ask for coffee at the bank and blah, blah, blah. How do you politely say no to people?
You get yourself like an amazing EA when you get an EA one day, you get yourself an amazing EA and she fends everyone off. No, okay. You know what? I think you be on like sometimes those coffees turned out to be something that, surprised you, right? And I think with those coffees, I always said, come prepared to talk to me about something. And so you put the rules around how you want to use that time in that session, or you just say no, right? And sorry, I don't have time. So yeah.
I find that one of the questions that has helped me a lot in the last year to avoid these types of zero purpose or not clear purpose type of events or meetups is, because I've become very protective of my time as well, is what is the desired outcome of this meeting? What is the desired outcome? Because sometimes like coffees are bad or some of them are bad, like especially if they don't know what they want. But the worst is when they want you to introduce them to someone. So you're like, oh, can you introduce me to this person? And you're like, yeah, no. At first they'd be like, of course, blah, blah, blah. So then I go to Johnny or Maria and I'm like, hey, would you be okay if I connect you with this person? And then I go, because I'm an excellent human being, and I go and write an incredible email to really make sure that they connect and that they know what each other. And then the initial person who requested it never follows up. So I look like an idiot. The other person's like, why are you wasting my time? Yeah. Because the initial person didn't even know what they wanted before or initially. So
it's time for you to just not be an exceptional human being, Stephan.
Hey, I can't help it sometimes. We've come to almost the end of this interview. We have the champagne question, which is the end, always the last question for our listener, for our guests. But because you said that you consider yourself a bit of an introvert, is there any specific advice that you would give for introverts when it comes to networking? Because a lot of people, again, they don't want, or they're scared of taking the seat at the table, or they're scared of asking for that coffee when they really want to meet someone and they really have the reason to justify it. Have you done anything specific when it comes to networking or building relationships that you could share to people, especially if they are introverts?
Yeah, I think this is one where I don't have I don't have this trick or anything like that, but it's just force yourself to do it, right? That's it. Know that it's going to be hard and just do it and plan for it. Just as you would plan for a hard test or a hard exam, plan for what may be a hard conversation for you. What do you want to get out of the conversation? What are some things that you'd like to talk about, right? And I think that when you just have to do it and force yourself. That's it. It's not an easy answer, unfortunately, and it's not something that people will like to hear, but that's the only way you're going to do it. And then just keep doing it over and over until you're a comfortable introvert, right? So I feel like I'm introverted, but I'm a comfortable introvert because at work, people will say to me, "What do you mean you're an introvert?" Right? But if you put me in like a different setting, I like clam up. And so, but because I've practiced really hard at putting myself in uncomfortable positions, especially during my career, of talking to people that I typically would never have just like walked up to, you get better at it and it's not scary anymore.
Apart from Lean In, the book, and I guess David Goggins in many ways, is there anything that you've read so that you can overcome, I'm not saying that you have it, but the imposter syndrome, guys, girls, anyone, where they're like, I think I should apply for this, but I don't think I'm good enough. I think, yes, it's putting yourself in these uncomfortable positions, but especially at the beginning of your career or even later, sometimes we don't think that we're good enough. And next thing you know, you're in that position and you're like, oh, I was good enough all this time, but I didn't take those risks. Is there any particular book or anything that really just showed you to go and take those risks where it helped you believe in yourself?
I can't think of a specific book that made me think that way, but I've always been somebody that has to win, right? And so like every time I play sports or anything like that, I have to win. Or if I play Scrabble, you're gonna lose.
Me too. I'm very competitive.
So, I think a lot of it comes down to your nature as well, and the drive that you have. And so a lot of the times where I've just said like, okay, maybe that's a little bit out of reach for me, but I want it. So I'm going to go get it. Right. And so I think it comes down to your attitude, and you just have to, at the end of the day, you can read as many books as you want, but you just ultimately have to believe in yourself.
I remember when we used to work together that Paul LeBlanc, who was the SVP, he was very competitive too. I think a lot of us were really competitive on that floor. And I remember our summer events. It was like the competition. We did a lot of activities in that, and everyone was really competitive.
Yeah, no, it's fun though. It's fun.
We've come to the last question. Okay, I know I said last question like 4 questions ago, but here's the champagne question.
Okay.
And it goes like this. If we were to meet a year from now with a bottle of champagne, what are we celebrating in Kristal's life? 2022, in 1 year.
Leaving my house. No. I'm going to tell you, it's going to be something work related, right? And I think I hold my career very, very. It's something I'm extremely proud of. And it's something that is extremely important to me. So I'm hoping that we're going to be celebrating something that whether I've met certain goals at work, just done a really good job, made a good impression at this new company. I'll celebrate even small wins, but it'll likely be work related.
I'm loving it. Well, I'm so happy that you were here. I really looked forward to this interview because, again, success leaves clues, and you continue to be that nice person. You're very competitive. I know you're going to continue to win, but I think what people don't see is that you're driven, you learn constantly, you push yourself into uncomfortable situations, And I think that really builds momentum, and that really has taken you where you are now, and you will continue to achieve. So I'm very happy to have you here. Thank you very much. Do you have any closing remarks, Kristal?
Well, first of all, thank you for being so complimentary to me. My goodness, like my ego is going to be having a hard time to walk down the stairs to my kitchen.
Anytime you want an introduction, I'll be your hype man. Invite me to any Reuters event.
Amazing. I'm going to bring you everywhere with me when I need an introduction. Like that was the best introduction for me. But, I think that, message to people that are listening, especially those who are early in your careers is just try it, like don't overthink what you're about to say or do or worry about what others are going to think. The careers are very, very long. And so, just start practicing being uncomfortable.
Amazing. Yeah, try to practice, start feeling comfortable being uncomfortable. I love that. Thank you very much, Kristal Au-Yong, Stephan Dyer on the Stephan Dyer Podcast.
Gracias por
Ciao,
escuchar
ciao.
el Stephan Dyer Podcast. Arrivederci, my people.